Hello there. People are always intrigued by coincidences, like the one where the government wants to bury any groomer inquiry and the single MP pushing ahead with a crowdfunded inquiry of his own is suddenly the subject of claims of bullying and threats of violence. After yesterday's announcement by Safeguarding Minister Jess Phillips that Yvette Cooper, her boss, had decided to drop 4 out of the 5 toothless inquiries into the groomers in favour of letting perpetrators and their facilitators wriggle off the hook, it must now be totally clear to all that the establishment wants the whole criminal scandal of the groomers completely buried. In fact, in my opinion, they would rather they continued, for the sake of diversity and cohesion. Even Nigel Farage's Reform UK somehow forgot to follow through on their promise to fund a nationwide groomer inquiry themselves. But Rupert Lowe MP, while a member of Reform UK, was arguing hard on the inside for the party to push ahead with their promised inquiry. And then suddenly Rupert Lowe was surprisingly ousted from the party under a cloud of claims of bullying and threatening violence. All because, we're told, he questioned Farage's claims that he was democratising Reform UK. To the point Rupert Lowe was reported to the police and even had his gun collection confiscated. All for a political argument over how Reform UK was administered and how it was registered at Companies House. All very coincidental, of course. For those so inclined, there is no conspiracy to see here. After all, no one, let alone any British politician, would ever dream of undertaking political horse trading on the backs of vulnerable youngsters, would they? Or engaging in political activities that would bury true justice under a heap of stinking manure. And I doubt political party supporters, especially those from Reform UK, would stand for that either. But it is such a pity that Nigel Farage went from being totally behind a private inquiry where he said it would be easy to raise the funds and garner such a deep interest from the public, despite it having no legal teeth, to a position where he said it was not worth conducting such an inquiry because it had no teeth. I suppose Farage might have changed his mind because maybe it was Rupert Lowe's idea in the first place. I don't know. But still a pity that he and Rupert could not bury their differences over this one. Especially now that the government has made it as plain as day that there will be no national inquiry, and no one can force them to have one. Surely any inquiry is better than no inquiry. But Lowe has not been cowed by all of this. He made a promise that he would start the inquiry even if Reform UK did not, and he has not reneged on his promise to get that groomer inquiry underway, and has now successfully crowdfunded over £530,000 with another month to go. While the government does all it can to water down any attempt to get to the bottom of this abhorrent scandal. I've left a link to that crowdfunder in the descriptions box below. Also strange when GB News says the number of people jailed for rioting at a hotel housing asylum seekers in Rotherham has now exceeded the number of groomers jailed in the South Yorkshire town. And the Times says that the police are arresting over 30 individuals daily for posting offensive content on social media and other online platforms. And that number is increasing. So the low-hanging fruit of hurty words is far more important than engaging in the racist arrests of those who are predominantly figuring in the groomer statistics. Now, Jess Phillips said yesterday, just hours before Parliament rose for Easter recess, that following feedback from local authorities, the government would take a flexible approach and the local authorities concerned will be able to spend the money allocated to them for these inquiries basically in any way they chose, such as on more bespoke work, including local victims panels or locally led audits of the handling of historical cases, said Phillips. In my view, what this amounts to is an offer to local councils to not even mark their own homework, but to bury it instead. Now, why would this Labour government want to do that? And worse, the barrister allocated to this set of inquiries was reportedly left out of the loop totally. According to reports, Tom Crowther KC ended up sending the Home Office an email a few days ago asking if his services were still required for the inquiries, because he'd heard nothing from them. Now, once Jess Phillips had sat down from her statement, the Shadow Home Office Minister Katie Lamb gave her reply. And most of the salient points are not repeatable or replayable by ordinary YouTubers on this platform. Suffice to say that the level of involvement of social services and the public sector officials in these disgusting activities is shocking. Now, one Lib Dem MP, Tessa Munt, said her blood was boiling about this. But not over the plight of the groomer victims, but at the Tories pointing out the truth of who the perpetrators in these cases were and still are, something that is not generally disputed. No, Tessa Munt said she, like many thousands of others, was a victim and survivor of such acts by men of the UK majority demographic. Now, I've no doubt about that at all. But just because you are angry at your own suffering, that surely does not mean that others must suffer too. If anything, that would be a great argument for widening the net still further instead of backing the Labour move to water it all down. And Munt did say that she fully backed the Labour policy as laid out by Jess Phillips. So, just about everyone in politics, it seems, does not want a full official national inquiry into the groomers. Except Rupert Lowe, of course. I discount the Tories, even those of today who argue for it, because they had 14 years in power to have a national groomer inquiry, but chose instead to hound one of the main reporters of the groomer scandal, Tommy Robinson, into jail, something Labour has emulated. And there can only be one reason for not holding such an inquiry. Because they all know exactly what would be unearthed and how deep and wide it goes. If they thought such an inquiry would prove that men of the majority demographic were the major or only problem on a pro rata basis, they would start one tomorrow. And it would have all the funding, all the police time, all the court time, and all the bells and whistles it needed. You know that, I know that, and they know that. Hence the recent attempts by those such as the Sentencing Council to try and skew the legal system against men of the majority demographic. Because the more of them they can get into court and prison, the better it looks for those from demographics that are currently overrepresented in the criminal justice system. As far as our woke anti-British establishment is concerned, there are too few white men in prison. But they will be freeing up, 3,000 prison spaces in the coming months. So beware, they will be coming for you. Finally, please like, subscribe and comment below, and a big shout out for our Patreon supporters. And thank you for watching.